we got to the point in the Megillah where Vashti is banished, and now Ahasuerus is manipulated by his advisors to find women to come and a woman to come and replace Vashti. And here we're introduced to Mordechai. There's a lot of misunderstanding and myths around Mordechai and Esther and the relationship between them. Megillah says very clearly, two psukim, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira, u'shmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimei ben Kish ish Yemini. There's this Jewish man in Shushan, the capital. His name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, ish Yemini, from the tribe of Binyamin. Why we get all this genealogy? To allude to the connection of Mordechai to the family of Shaul. It's obvious because Shaul is Shaul ben Kish, and he was of the family of Binyamin, is Benyamini. And what Shaul failed to do is to annihilate Amalek. And here is like a historical repetition. Mordechai, the great-grandson of Shaul, is pitted against Haman Ha'agagi, the great-grandson of Agag, the king of Amalek. And there's an emphasis on the fact that he was exiled from Yerushalayim. 4 times in the pasuk we have the verb galut, asher hogla miYerushalayim im hagola, asher hogleta im Yechonia, asher regla Nebuchadnezzar. He was exiled from Jerusalem with the exile that was exiled with Yechonia, which was exiled by Nebuchadnezzar. It's a tongue twister for the reader of the Megillah because the word appears 3 times in different Likud. But the point is to say, here is Mordechai, who probably had a very high position in Israel before the exile, and now he is uprooted and is planted in Bavel or in Shushan. And later on we'll find Mordechai Yoshev B'Sha'ar HaMelech, right? It doesn't mean he was the goalkeeper. The goalie is we used to say Mordechai played kaduregel, played football, Yoshev B'Sha'ar HaMelech. It's not that. It means that he was, whoever sits at the gate of the palace is one of the judges, right? The shoftim, they always sit the judges at the gate. So Mordechai had this position, and it fits with the policy of the empire of the Persian Empire that they wanted to incorporate everyone. So instead of having Persian officials governing everywhere, they always connected to local people. So Mordechai was like the liaison to the Jewish community. So it was very well known that he's Jewish. Vahi omenet hadasa, hi Esther bat dodo, כי אין לה אבאים והנערה יפת תואר וטובת מראה, ובמות אביה ואימה, לקחה מרדכי לא לבד. He was a foster father to Hadassah, Esther, who was his uncle's daughter, meaning she was his cousin. Many people mistakenly think that Mordechai was Esther's uncle. That was because he was older than her, so we have this in mind, the relation of an uncle and a niece, but they were cousins. And the importance of the names, Hadassah is her Hebrew name, comes from the word Hadass, myrtle, which is the same plant that we use on Sukkot. But Esther is a pagan name, is a Persian or Babylonian name. It comes from the word, the name of the chief goddess of the Persians, the Babylonians also, Ishtar or Ishtahar, and it's the root of the word star in all languages. Star, Estrella, stern, it's all the same word. So Esther has a Hebrew name and a non or a non-Hebrew name or a pagan name. Mordechai.
When I explain my wife her middle name, she's going to be very pleased.
Oh, what is her middle name? Is Hadassah or Esther? No, Esther. Okay. Mordechai also today is such a Jewish name, Mordechai, but actually it's also a pagan name. It's the chief god of the Babylonians, Marduk. So they are like the symbol of the transition between the cultures. They came from Eretz Israel. Now they have non-Jewish names, but they make them Jewish. Meaning, it's not about the name; it's about what you make it be. So she was a beautiful girl. She lost her father and mother. We don't know how, but Mordechai took her to be, and he raised her as his own daughter. Now the Midrash says something about this word levat. They say the word bat in Hebrew means daughter. The word bait means house, but also in some say is a metaphor, euphemism for a wife. So the Midrash says that Mordechai married Esther. So, and a lot of people perpetuate this. I heard from a lot of people saying it is fact that Mordechai and Esther were married, and it causes several problems. First, it doesn't say, the Megillah doesn't say that they were married. Second, it clearly says that Ahashverosh was looking at Kol Na'ara Betula Tovat Mareh. He was looking for virgins, for unmarried women. Why would he take Esther if she was married? To answer that, the Midrash says they were married, but they did not consummate the marriage, meaning they were betrothed. They did like the first level of Kiddushin, which are the two blessings, but they never consummated the marriage, and that's why she was taken. But then, to complicate matters more, the Midrash says that after she was taken by Ahashverosh, she's still married to Mordechai. So, what did she do? The Gemara brings that שהייתה עולה מחיקו של אחשוורוש וטובלת ויושבת בחיקו של מרדכי. So after she spent the night or she had relations with Ahashverosh, she would go to the mikveh and then she would go back to her husband Mordechai. Now that seems
non-kosher.
Non-kosher, right. Non-kosher, it seems preposterous. I mean, in terms of, first of all, that she's shuffling between two husbands, like one legal, what is so Ahashverosh, you consider her marriage to him not unlegal or unkosher. But also from a practical point of view, how was she able to do that? How does the queen leave the palace? We know it's not the palace, it's a harem, what we call in Hebrew haramon, right? Where it doesn't, the Megillah doesn't use the word harem. It was bet nashim, but it is a harem. Harem is an English word which was taken from the Arabic, and it means it's from the word haram or muharram, meaning forbidden. It's the forbidden area where no one is allowed to go. Men were not allowed to go into that palace, and women were not allowed to go out. Imagine, at the end of the Megillah, what happens? Ahashverosh executes Haman, not because he wanted to kill all the Jews, but because Ahashverosh thought that Haman is making advances on Esther, right? When he comes back into the party room and he says Haman, and he sees Haman nofel ala mita she'Esther alea, Haman was lying on the bed, meaning he was pleading with Esther to have mercy on him, but because they were lying on recliners, it looked as if he's taking advantage of her, and the king says, "Hagam lichbosh et amalka ami babayit." Not only you want to kill all the Jews, you also want to take my wife. Like, what is the?
While I'm home.
What is the more right? What is the more serious crime? Really, killing a whole nation, but you see, for the king, that was the more important thing. Al Hazan used to read always when you get to this pasuk with a dramatic, a question mark like. ויאמר המלך להמן, הגם לכבוש את המלכה עמי בבית? Really? Like, אני פה? Right. So Ahashverosh killed Haman with all the things that he did, only because he suspected that he's having an affair with Esther. So for Esther to risk everyone, to go out once in a while, to be with her husband, if they were married, makes no sense at all. Right? You ever thought of that? If you heard the Midrash, how did she do it in practice? Did you think about that? What is no? Okay, you did. Okay. The Kabbalah came up with a solution that instead of Esther going herself to the king, she had a clone, like a spiritual clone called Bavuah, and she would send this Bavuah, this reflection, to the king and go herself to her husband. But that doesn't solve the problem either. Meaning, if she had this kind of a spiritual ghost that she could send to the king, then why is she concerned when Mordechai tells her, go talk to the king? Send your ghost, right? And she could talk to the king. So all these things don't add up. So there's something deeper here. And the deeper question is this: why did the rabbis make up a story when it's not in the story? Why did they make her Mordechai's wife when the story clearly says that she was his adopted daughter, right? So to answer that, we have to look at what was happening in the world of the rabbis. This is an important thing. Whenever you study commentary on the Torah or anything, you ask, okay, the person who made the commentary is drawing from his own experience. What was happening in Israel at the time when the rabbis said the story that could have influenced them to tell the story? So we have a very clear knowledge of that, and that is, and I heard this from my professor in Bar Ilan, Professor Ephraim Yitzhaki. He said that in the Mishnah, you find in Mishnah Masechet Ketubot, the Mishnah speaks about a case of a woman who was kidnapped by non-Jews. It was very common in the 2nd century, since the 2nd century before the Common Era, after the war of the Maccabim, and later on when the Romans came into Eretz Israel. It was a very common thing. You're under the control of an oppressive regime. Once in a while, women were kidnapped and held for ransom. So they were sometimes they were al iske nefashot, sometimes al iske mamon. So sometimes it was part of war, and sometimes it was just they used that to make money. It's still practiced in many places. In Colombia, I remember when I lived there was a report one year in the magazines about the incomes of the guerrillas. There are 2 guerrilla groups, and part of the regular income is kidnappings. This group made 300 million. This group made 250 million from kidnappings. It's just a business. So the same business used to run in Eretz Israel 2,000 years ago. Now, what was the problem? The woman was kidnapped. Then she was released. Where does she go now? She goes back to her home, right? But her husband says, you know what? I don't know what happened between you and your captors. I don't want you anymore. So not only she was kidnapped, not only she suffered, she's now rejected by her family. But the husband doesn't say that he's like this mean-spirited man that doesn't want his wife. He says, I don't know from a Jewish point of view, from the point of view of halakha, maybe you had relationships with your captor consensually, which makes you now illegible to come back to me.
But maybe for survival purposes she did it.
Exactly. Right? She doesn't know. Okay. We don't know that it happened. We don't know that it was consensual. Right. The rabbis made a rule, a very clear rule. They said that she must be accepted back into the family, and the husband cannot reject her. Despite all that, the Mishnah says, "Ma'aseh beriva ahat shehu hana be'Ashkelon v'rihakua b'nei mishpachta." We know the case. We know the place. It happened in Ashkelon. Ashkelon was a mixed Roman Jewish city. So you know that we still Atikot Ashkelon, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of archaeological sites in Ashkelon. So this woman was kidnapped in Ashkelon, who hana, meaning that they asked for ransom, and when she was released, the family rejected her. So what you see here is that on one hand, the rabbis issue halakha, but in reality, on the other hand, people don't listen to it because you can't enforce this halakha. What are you going to say? Take the girl, take her home, back to her husband, say, here's your wife, you could live with her. He says, okay, thank you. You leave, right? The Beit Din leaves, he opens the door and he kicks her out. Or he lets her live in the house but treats her miserably. So halakha doesn't work here. What they have to do is a paradigm shift. They have to re-educate people. How do you re-educate people? By telling stories. The best way to educate people is by telling stories. So they take a story, they tell people, you know, what you're going through, you're not the first ones. It happened before to great people, very righteous people, Mordechai and Esther. That's why they created the story of Mordechai and Esther being married, because the same exact thing. Here's Mordechai, happily married to a nice Jewish girl, right? And she's being taken away, kidnapped by the king. Despite all that, when she is able to leave the king and come to her husband, he receives her with respect. So the whole point is not about them having relationships, but rather about Mordechai not rejecting Esther. So even though it didn't happen, but it sent the message to the people that they say, if Mordechai and Esther were fine with that, who am I to say that what they did was not good enough. So this is this is the explanation of why the rabbis made Mordechai and Esther a couple. But again, if we go back to the pshat of the Megillah, they were not a couple. But there was this relationship between them, which is important, of him being the adoptive father, and she's being the adoptive daughter, and therefore, up until the point where she decides to take action, she's always very submissive, very shy, and some people even say the word Esther is from hiding. She's like this hidden figure, and eventually she rises to the task, and we'll discuss it in the next part. Be'ezrat Hashem. Baruch Adonai, le'olam amen ve'amen.